Hi everybody, welcome back. Today we are going to discuss the photons and gravity. How photons are affected by gravity. Photons, they don't have rest mass. Rest mass of the photon is zero, that we know. But the photons, they behave like a particle um, which has gravitational mass. Okay, so it behaves like a particle having gravitational mass, like this. Okay, now how can we determine the mass of the photon? That is determined using this equation. We know momentum P, this is momentum. Momentum P is given by mass into velocity. So momentum P is given by mass into velocity. Okay, so mass is given by P by V, momentum by velocity. Now, in the case of photon, momentum we can calculate. Okay, momentum is energy by C because rest mass is zero. Okay, this rest mass is zero. So the momentum that is given by E by C. Okay, momentum is given by E by C. So E is h nu. This is h nu. Okay, we know E is h nu. So the mass is given by h nu by c. This is the momentum by this velocity is c. Okay, velocity of the photon is c. So the mass is given by h nu over c square. Okay, so this is the mass of the photon. So this is how we determine the mass of the photon. So rest mass zero, but the photon has a mass that mass is given by h nu over c. Okay. Now, by the principle of equivalence, the gravitational mass is gravitational mass is always equal to the inertial mass. Okay, gravitational mass is equal to inertial mass. So the mass that we calculated is actually the inertial mass, and that is same as the gravitational mass. So h nu over c square, that is the mass of the photon, that is the gravitational mass of the photon. So definitely photon is affected by gravity. So gravitationally it acts as a particle of mass h nu over c square. This is a very important point. In the gravitational field, the photon acts like a particle of mass h nu over c square. Now, since the photon has this mass, the gravitational behavior, the photon is affected by gravity. Its gravitational behavior can be calculated, can be demonstrated in the laboratory. Okay, suppose we are taking this example. Suppose that a stone is dropped from a height h. Okay, we are dropping a stone from a height h above the surface of the earth. Due to the gravitational pull, the stone of mass m that accelerates as it falls. Initial velocity is zero. We are dropping it from a height. Initial velocity is zero. As we drop it, its velocity gradually increases. It accelerates, and as it travels through a height h, it gains energy mgh. So this much energy it gains as it travels through a distance h. Okay, that we can see here. See, we have a we have the mass. This is a stone of mass m, particle of mass m. We are dropping it from a height. This is ground. So here it's kinetic energy 0, it is at rest, and its potential energy is mgh. Now, as we drop it, it falls through this distance h. So when it reaches the ground, its potential energy will be 0. Then its kinetic energy should be mgh. Its velocity will be gradually increasing, and it acquires this kinetic energy mgh. Why? Because the total energy is constant. Here the total energy is mgh. Kinetic energy plus potential energy is mgh. Here the total energy should be mgh because total energy is conserved. For that, since potential energy is 0 here, the kinetic energy must be mgh. So what we can say is, if you drop a body of mass m from a certain height h, it gains an energy. Okay, gains an energy mgh. Okay, so we now compare this with the photon. Suppose that a photon is traveling from a certain height h to the ground. Okay, there is no need of dropping it. It travels from this point to the ground. Its energy, this is called quantum energy. Okay, its energy is h nu, the quantum energy. And as it travels through this distance, here we saw the stone acquires a kinetic energy mgh. Here, the quantum energy that increases, or the photon energy that increases. Here it is h nu. Now, as it travels through this distance h, when it comes here, its energy will be h nu plus mgh, like this. Okay, if the photon is affected by gravity, if its energy at a point h distance above the ground is h nu, as it reaches the ground, its energy should be h nu plus mgh, as it happened here for the case of a stone. So that we are writing here E equal to h nu plus, for m is the mass of the photon here, that is h nu over c square. Okay, h nu over c square gh. So this is the energy of the photon. So as the photons falls through a height h, its energy increases. As we saw here, its energy increases. At a height h above, the energy is h nu. Then when it is on the ground, after traveling through a distance h, its energy is h nu plus h nu over c square gh. So its energy, its photon energy is increasing. Okay. And that increase in energy results in an increase in the frequency. So frequency increases from mu to mu prime. So that is given by this equation. The final photon energy, that is equal to initial photon energy plus this increase in energy that we saw in the previous slide. Okay, initial photon energy, that is h nu, increase in energy is mgh. And if you put m equal to h nu over c square, you get the final photon energy as equal to h nu plus h nu over c square gh. And the energy is increasing, so its frequency is increasing. So we are writing this as h nu prime. Nu prime is the new frequency of the photon. So h nu prime is equal to h nu 1 plus, I am taking h nu as common factor, 1 plus gh over c square. H we can cancel, so nu prime is equal to nu inside the bracket 1 plus gh over c square. So this clearly shows there is an increase in frequency, or there is an increase in energy as the photon travels through distance h on the surface of the earth. So from a height h, when it travels through the ground level, its energy increases. So as it travels towards earth, its energy increases, frequency increases. Okay, so that was what we observed here. Now we are going into another interesting aspect of this. Okay, it is the gravitational redshift. This is a very interesting astronomical effect due to the gravitational behavior of light. Again, this proves that light is affected by gravity. The main idea is, in the previous section just that we discussed now, there we saw as a photon travels towards Earth, its frequency is increasing, its energy is increasing. So it's quite natural that if a photon is moving away from the Earth, its frequency should decrease. So the frequency of the photon should decrease as it moves away from Earth. Okay. Now, in the case of Earth, its gravitational field is not that strong. Okay. The gravitational field around Earth is not that strong. It's very weak compared to gravitational field around other objects. For example, if you take a star, a very massive star, very big in size, its gravitational field is very, very strong compared to Earth. So this effect, that is the decrease in frequency as a photon moves away from the star, can be observed. So here we are considering a star of mass m. Its radius is capital R. A photon is emitted from the star, from the surface of the star. That photon is shown here. And the photon is moving away from the star. Since it is moving away from the star, its frequency decreases, its energy decreases, its wavelength increases. That is clearly shown here. Okay, so we are observing this frequency, we are observing this light emitted by the star from Earth. Okay, so the star is emitting light, and that light travels through the space, outer space, and reaches Earth. The light that we observe here will have less frequency than the light originally emitted by the star. Okay, so here the star is of mass capital M, its radius is R. It's emitting a radiation of frequency nu. Now let's see what happens. The potential energy of a mass m on the star's surface, that is given by minus g capital M small m by r. This is a equation that we study in gravitation. An object of mass m of radius r has a gravitational potential around it. Okay, gravitational potential, and that gravitational potential on its surface is minus g m by r. And if you put or place a body of mass m on the surface, its gravitational potential energy will be minus g capital M small m over r. So this will be the potential energy. Now in this case, we are considering a photon that is emitted. Okay, we are considering a photon that is being emitted. So we are considering its potential energy. So its potential energy is minus gmr. For this small m, I am giving what? The mass of the photon. Mass of the photon is h nu over c square. So this will be the potential energy of the photon. Okay, this is the potential energy of the photon. Now total energy is, in the case of photon, it is sum of its potential energy and its quantum energy or electromagnetic energy, h nu. Okay, while in mechanics we say the total energy is sum of the potential energy and kinetic energy, here we say the total energy is sum of the potential energy and its not kinetic energy. This is the quantum energy or electromagnetic energy of the photon, that is h nu. So the total energy is h nu minus G capital M h nu over RC square. Okay, and E is equal to h nu. I'm taking h nu as common factor, 1 minus Gm by RC square. So this is the total energy of the photon as it is emitted from the star's surface. So here the total energy is this. Now the photon emitted that travels through the space, moves through the space. Okay. Now at a larger distance from the star, very large distance from the star. For example, at the Earth, suppose we are observing light coming from the star, from the Earth, which is at huge distance from the star. There, photon is beyond the star's gravitational field. Okay, the photon will not be affected by the star's gravitational field because R, the distance from the star to the photon, that is very, very large. So potential energy due to the star, that will be zero. And potential energy due to the Earth, that also will be very, very negligible because compared to the star, the Earth is, producing very weak gravitational field around it. So its potential energy can be approximately taken to be zero. So total energy of the photon is now entirely electromagnetic. Okay, the energy of the photon is now entirely electromagnetic, the quantum energy, which is given by E equal to h nu prime, where nu prime is the frequency of the photon arriving. Okay, nu prime is the frequency of the arriving photon. Right? So as we saw here, we are calculating the total energy of the photon as it reaches Earth. Its energy is simply h nu prime. We are not considering its potential energy. Okay, because it is very much far away from the star, and for the Earth, its potential energy is very, very that's very weak. So the total energy here on the Earth's surface or in the Earth's gravitational field, that is h nu prime. And on the star's surface, when the photon was emitted, its total energy is h nu 1 minus Gm by C square R. This is the total energy. Okay, so this is the equation that we write from the law of conservation of energy. H we can cancel. So nu prime by nu, that is 1 minus Gm by C square by R. And a little bit rearrangement. 1 minus nu prime by u, that is equal to Gm by R C square. Or from that, I can write nu minus nu prime by nu. Okay. Nu, I am multiplying this as nu, so nu minus nu prime over nu, that is equal to Gm by RC square. So this nu minus nu prime can be written as the shift or change in frequency. That is equal to delta nu. So delta nu over nu, that is Gm by R square. So this equation actually represents the relative frequency change or the gravitational redshift. Okay, the frequency change is, this is nu minus nu prime. So the frequency change is actually it is a decrease in the frequency. Okay, because this delta nu, this is positive, delta nu is positive, that means nu will be greater than nu prime or nu prime will be less than nu. So there is a change in the frequency or a decrease in the frequency, and this is called gravitational redshift. Why? Okay, why it is called gravitational redshift? It is because the shift here, if a star is emitting light in the visible region of the spectrum. Okay, we are calling this as gravitational redshift. Why? If the star is emitting light which is in the visible region of the spectrum, as it reaches the Earth, its frequency decreases, its wavelength increases. So the spectrum shifts towards the red end of the visible spectrum. Okay, or the wavelength of the light emitted by the star shifts towards the red end of the spectrum. Its frequency is decreasing, its wavelength is increasing. So it gets shifted towards the red end. So that's why this is called gravitational redshift. Okay. This is different. One thing we have to note, this is different from Doppler redshift. Okay, we have learned Doppler redshift. You might have heard about Doppler redshift. It is actually a shift in the frequency of light emitted by a star because of the expansion of the universe. Because the distant galaxies, they are recessing, they are moving away from the Earth. As they move, there will be a shift in the frequency, a decrease in the frequency. That is called Doppler redshift. Again, the wavelength shifts towards the red end of the spectrum. So it is a redshift, and it is called Doppler redshift. That is due to the expansion of the universe, galaxies moving away from each other. But this thing is different. Here, the redshift occurs due to the loss in energy of the photon as it escapes the gravitational field of the star. Okay. Now this shift, this depends on this shift in frequency, the decrease in frequency, that depends on the factor Gm by Rc square, where m is the mass, R is the radius of the star. G and C are constants. So it depends on mass of the star and radius of the star. Okay. Now, if this ratio m by r is too small, suppose this ratio is very small, then we will not be able to detect that change in frequency or the decrease in frequency. So actually, this ratio has to be large, sufficiently large to detect this change in frequency. Okay. So for most of the stars, including Sun, this ratio is too small. This m by r ratio is too small for the gravitational redshift to be observed, to be apparent. But there are certain class of stars known as white dwarfs. White dwarfs, actually it is on the limit of the measurement, and it has been observed in the case of white dwarfs. So light emitted by white dwarfs clearly shows the gravitational redshift. Okay, and for them, the ratio, the mass by radius ratio is sufficient, just sufficient to observe the redshift. Okay, so what is a white dwarf? A white dwarf is a very old star. Okay, actually in the last stages of a star, whose interior actually consists of atoms whose electronic structures have been collapsed. So it is very small. A white dwarf star is very massive, but it is very small. Okay. A typical white dwarf star is about the size of the Earth, but has the mass of the Sun. Okay. So size is that of Earth, but mass is that of the Sun. So it is such a highly dense star, and for such type of stars, white dwarfs, the gravitational redshift has been observed. Now let's go to the topic of black holes. It's related with this gravitational redshift. In the case of gravitational redshift, we started from this relation. This is the electromagnetic energy, the photon as it reaches Earth. This is the electromagnetic energy of the star just as it leaves the surface of the star. Suppose this Gm by c square by r, Gm over c square r This is much greater than or equal to 1. Okay, if it is less than 1, no problem. If it is greater than or equal to 1, if it is equal to 1, we know the photon energy is 0. The energy of the photon as it escapes from the star, that will be equal to 0. As it escapes from the gravitational field of the star, that is h mu prime, the energy of the photon as it escapes from the gravitational field of the star, far away from the star, that is this h mu prime. If gm by c square r is equal to 1, this will be 0. And if it is greater than 1, what happens? And 1. That means is the photon emitted, the photon of frequency nu emitted from the star will not be able to escape from the gravitational field of the star. Okay. Then the total energy of the photon is negative. Now what that means is the photon cannot leave the star because it requires more energy than its initial energy actually. So actually when a photon is escaping from the gravitational field of a star, it is losing energy because the potential energy is negative. It's actually losing energy. Its photon energy, h mu, that actually decreases. H mu minus gm by r. That is what we write. So it is losing energy. So if the total energy is negative, that means the potential energy due to the gravitational force of attraction of the star is greater than, magnitude is greater than the energy of the photon energy or quantum energy of the photon. That means that photon will not be able to escape from the gravitational field of the star. Okay. A star of this kind, such stars, they will not radiate. Okay, they will not radiate because radiation cannot escape from its gravitational field. So it will be invisible because it is not radiating at all. It's invisible, and we have a black hole in space. Okay, so this is happening when G, this is actually M, Gm by C square R. Okay, Gm by Gm, but this is actually Gm by C square R. If it is greater than or equal to 1, then the total energy will be negative and the photon will not be able to escape from the gravitational field. Okay, once again I say this is M, Gm by C square R. Okay, now the correct criterion for a star to be black hole using other methods like general theory of relativity, it has been derived, and it is found to be Gm by C square R greater than or equal to half. It's not 1, it is actually half. This is more correct calculation. Okay, so if this condition is satisfied, then that object will act as a black hole. Okay, so this is the correct equation. Gm by C square R greater than or equal to half. So from that I can write 2Gm by C square equal is greater than or equal to R, or R is less than or equal to 2Gm over C square. Okay, so R, capital R, the radius of the star, less than or equal to 2Gm over C square. So a body of mass capital M and radius R will be a black body if the above condition is satisfied. So if this condition is satisfied, or this condition is satisfied, that body of mass capital M and radius R will be what? Will be a black hole. Now from here I can have a condition, the radius, the max, actually it is the maximum radius, not minimum radius, the maximum radius that it can have, a black hole over mass M and capital R to act as a black hole. The maximum radius that it can have is 2Gm by C square. Here I have written minimum, it's not minimum, it's maximum. So the maximum radius possible is Rs, that is 2 gm over c square, which is called the Schwarzschild radius. Okay, in the case of the black holes, there is a radius called Schwarzschild radius that can be determined using this 2 gm by c square. If the radius of the black hole is less than this rs, okay, the radius of the black hole is less than this rs, then it will be acting as a black hole. Okay, so if the radius of a body is less than this, then it will act as a black hole. So this one determines, Schwarzschild radius determines whether the body can be a black hole or not. So if you are given a body of mass m, what you can do is you just calculate this rs, 2 gm over c square, and then if the radius, actual radius of that object is less than this rs, okay, less than this rs, then that will be acting as a black hole. Okay, so a body is a black hole if all its mass is inside a sphere with this radius. Another term is this event horizon. Event horizon. It is actually the boundary of a black hole. The boundary of a black hole, that is called its event horizon. Okay, so this is the condition for a body to be a black hole. And this term is defined as the Schwarzschild radius. This term is the Schwarzschild radius. So the radius has to be less than or equal to this Schwarzschild radius for that body